The rejection email arrived while I was having lunch with my stepmother, Diana. Her perfectly timed smirk told me she'd been waiting for this moment. "Oh dear," she said, dabbing her lips with an expensive napkin. "Was that another rejection? That's the third company this week, isn't it?" I kept my face neutral as I read the email. The same polite phrasing I'd seen a dozen times now. "While your qualifications are impressive, we decided to pursue other candidates." "Fifth company, actually," I corrected her, putting my phone away. "But who's counting?" My name is Olivia Chen, and at 28, I was watching my stepmother systematically destroy everything my father had spent his life building, including my career. Diana's smile widened. "You know, if you just accepted my offer to work at Chen Industries in a suitable position, none of this would be necessary." By suitable position, she meant a meaningless role where she could keep me under her thumb. After my father's death 6 months ago, Diana had made it clear that while she'd inherited control of the company, she expected me to know my place. "I prefer to earn my positions," I said, taking a sip of water. "But then we have different views on that, don't we?" Her eyes narrowed. Diana had been my father's secretary before becoming his second wife 3 years ago. The ink on their marriage certificate had barely dried before his mysterious heart attack. "Careful, Olivia," she warned, her voice honey-sweet but her eyes cold. "That sharp tongue of yours is exactly why you can't find work. No one wants to hire someone with attitude problems." She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. Diana had spent the last 6 months using my father's connections to blacklist me from every major company in the finance industry. Her message was clear: submit to her authority at Chen Industries or watch my career disappear. What Diana didn't know was that I'd seen this coming. My father, Christopher Chen, hadn't built one of the most successful investment firms in the city by being naive. He taught me everything he knew, including how to prepare for betrayal. "You're probably right," I said, standing up. "Thank you for lunch, Diana. Always illuminating." As I walked out of the restaurant, I could feel her satisfaction radiating behind me. She thought she had me cornered, desperate. Just another trust fund kid who'd never learned to survive without daddy's money and connections. But my father had taught me so much more than she knew. I caught a cab to the small apartment I now called home. A far cry from the penthouse where I'd grown up, but it served its purpose. Diana thought she'd humiliated me by freezing my accounts and forcing me to downsize. She didn't realize I'd chosen this place specifically for its proximity to the city's financial district. Inside, I went straight to my home office, a converted walk-in closet with a desk, laptop, and walls covered in financial data. This was where I'd spent the last 6 months, watching Diana's every move at Chen Industries. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus, my father's former head of security. She bought it. Board meeting scheduled for Friday. I smiled, thinking about the seeds I'd been carefully planting. Anonymous tips to board members about questionable transfers. Whispers about Diana's rapid changes to company policy. Questions about the unusual circumstances of my father's death. Diana was smart, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She thought my father had taught me about finance only in the office, during business hours. She didn't know about our late-night strategy sessions, the weekends spent discussing market psychology, the lessons learned over chess games and dim sum. Most importantly, she didn't know about Project Phoenix. I opened my laptop and pulled up a secure folder. Inside were documents my father had prepared in the months before his death. Evidence of Diana's manipulation, records of her secret accounts, proof that she'd been selling company secrets to competitors. But the real treasure was a series of shell companies he'd helped me set up years ago. On paper, they were small investment firms spread across different countries. In reality, they were a network designed to acquire controlling interests in key companies without drawing attention. For 6 months, while Diana was busy blocking my obvious moves, these companies have been quietly buying up shares in Chen Industries' major clients and partners. Each purchase was small enough to fly under the radar. But together, a knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. I quickly closed the laptop and checked the security camera I'd installed, a habit my father had instilled in me. It was Sarah, my best friend and the only person besides Marcus who knew what I was really doing. "Please tell me you're not still eating instant ramen," she said as she walked in, holding up bags of takeout. "You can't overthrow an evil stepmother on cup noodles alone." I laughed, realizing I'd barely eaten at my lunch with Diana. My evil stepmother actually bought me a lovely lunch today. She wanted to gloat about her latest success in ruining my life. Sarah set out containers of Chinese food. From my father's favorite restaurant, I noticed with a pang. "How many companies is it now?" "Lost count," I said, grabbing chopsticks. "But it doesn't matter. Everything's ready for Friday." She paused, a dumpling halfway to her mouth. You're sure about this? Once you make your move, there's no going back. I thought about Diana's smock smile, about the way she'd warmed her way into my father's life and then systematically taken everything he built. I thought about the questions the police had dismissed about his death, about the medical reports that didn't quite add up. I'm sure, I said firmly. Dad didn't just teach me about business, Sarah. He taught me about justice, about protecting what matters. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. Sarah had known my father since we were kids in boarding school together. She'd seen firsthand how he balanced fierce business acumen with genuine compassion. Tell me the plan again, she said, settling onto my small couch. I want to make sure we haven't missed anything. I pulled out my laptop and brought up a complex diagram of company relationships. It starts with Western Capital. Western Capital was Diana's pride and joy, her first major acquisition as CEO of Chen Industries. She pushed the deal through over objections from the board, claiming it would diversify our portfolio. What she didn't know was that Western Capital was already compromised. Through my shell companies, I controlled enough of their debt to force a restructuring. When I called in those debts on Friday, it would start a domino effect that would ripple through all of Diana's recent acquisitions. The board meeting is at 10 a.m., I explained. Diana will be presenting her grand vision for the company's future. But at 9:45, the first reports of Western Capital's financial irregularities will hit the news. Sarah whistled low. And you're sure about your timing? I nodded. Marcus has everything set up. When Diana tries to deny the problems, he'll accidentally project proof of her own involvement on the boardroom screen. Every questionable deal, every secret payment, every connection to Western Capital's troubles. And then, I said, pulling up another document, the board learns about my shell companies, about how they own not just Western Capital's debt, but controlling interests in half of Diana's pet projects. They'll realize that while she was busy playing CEO, someone else was quietly becoming kingmaker. Sarah was quiet for a moment, processing. Your dad would be proud, not just of the plan, but of how you've handled everything. I felt tears prick at my eyes but blinked them away. Now wasn't the time for emotions. Sometimes I wonder if he knew about Diana, about what she was planning. The way he prepared me taught me to look beyond the obvious. Of course he knew, Sarah said softly. Your dad didn't trust easily, especially after your mom died. He must have seen something in Diana that worried him. I thought about the last conversation I'd had with my father just days before his death. We'd been in his office late at night, playing chess like we always did. Remember, Olivia, he'd said, moving his knight into position. The most dangerous moves often look like mistakes to your opponent. Let them think they've won, and they'll never see the real threat until it's too late. At the time, I thought he was just teaching me chess strategy. Now I wondered if he'd been preparing me for exactly this moment. A notification popped up on my laptop, another email from a company rejecting my application. But this time, instead of frustration, I felt only determination. Diana thought she was winning, thought she'd stripped me of everything that mattered. She didn't understand that my father's real legacy wasn't his money or his company. It was everything he taught me about patience, strategy, and justice. Friday was coming, and with it, a lesson Diana would never forget. Friday morning dawned clear and cold. I stood in front of my mirror, adjusting the suit I hadn't worn since my father's funeral. Today it felt like armor. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Everything's in place. Board members arriving early. She suspects nothing. I took one last look around my small apartment, at the financial charts covering the walls, the empty takeout containers from late-night planning sessions, the chess set positioned exactly as my father had left it in our last game. After today, everything would change. The cab ride to Chen Industries felt surreal. The last time I entered the building had been the day Diana had security escort me out, making a show of revoking my access. Now I walked through the lobby openly, head held high. Miss Chen. The security guard looked uncertain. I'm not sure you're allowed. She's with me. Marcus appeared, badge already out. Board's special request. In the elevator, Marcus briefed me quietly. Diana's been in her office since dawn, preparing for her presentation. She's got the whole board convinced Western Capital is about to announce record profits. I checked my watch, 9:15 a.m. Has Ace set up the projector like we discussed? He nodded, a grim smile on his face. Everything's ready, though I still think you should have let me look deeper into your father's death. One battle at a time, I said as the elevator doors opened. Today is about the company. Justice for Dad. That's next. The boardroom was filling up when we arrived. I recognized most of the faces, people who'd known me since childhood, who'd watched me learn the business from my father. A few nodded slightly, others looked away uncomfortably. Diana swept in at 9:30, immaculate in an expensive suit, her confidence radiating. She faltered slightly when she saw me but recovered quickly. "Olivia, darling," she said loudly. "How unexpected. The board meeting is private." Actually, Robert Chen, my father's oldest friend and head of the board, interrupted. "We invited Olivia. Given the concerns raised about recent company decisions, we felt it appropriate to have all Chen family members present." Diana's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Of course, though I wasn't aware Olivia had any remaining connection to the company. "Blood is blood," Robert said firmly. "Please begin your presentation." As Diana launched into her carefully prepared speech about growth metrics and strategic acquisitions, I watched the clock. 9:40, 9:42. At exactly 9:45, phones around the room began buzzing. Board members glanced down, faces growing concerned. "Is something wrong?" Diana asked, noticing the distraction. Robert cleared his throat. "Diana, we're seeing some disturbing news about Western Capital. Something about hidden debts and irregular trading patterns." "Impossible," Diana said smoothly. "I personally oversaw the acquisition. Their financials are solid." "Are they?" I spoke for the first time, nodding to Marcus. The projector screen behind Diana suddenly filled with documents, internal memos, bank transfers, encrypted emails between Diana and Western Capital's CEO. "What is this?" she demanded, spinning around. "The truth," I said, standing up. "About Western Capital. About how you've been selling company secrets. About everything." For the next 30 minutes, I laid out my evidence. How Diana had orchestrated the Western Capital deal to hide her own illegal activities. How she'd been systematically weakening Chen Industries while strengthening her personal position. "This is nonsense," she sputtered. "You're just a bitter child who couldn't handle losing Daddy's company." Speaking of my father, I said quietly, "Should we discuss the irregularities in his medical reports? The missing security footage from the night he died? Or should we focus on how my shell companies now control most of your recent acquisitions?" The color drained from her face. "Shell companies? What shell companies?" I pulled up another document showing the complex network of companies I built. "Did you really think my father only taught me what you saw in the office? Every time you blocked me from a job, these companies bought more shares. Every time you flaunted your power, you were actually helping me gain control." The boardroom erupted in chaos. Board members demanded explanations. Diana tried to deny everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. "Mrs. Chen," Robert said heavily, "in light of these revelations, the board is calling for an immediate vote of no confidence." "You can't do this," she hissed. "I'm Christopher's widow. And I'm his daughter," I cut in. "The daughter he spent years preparing for exactly this moment. Check your contracts, Diana. Really check them. Those shell companies don't just own shares in our partners. They own controlling interest in your personal holding companies too." She staggered slightly, realization dawning. "The offshore accounts, I'll trace back to you. The SEC will be particularly interested in those." The next few hours passed in a blur of lawyers, statements, and signatures. Diana was removed as CEO, pending criminal investigation. The board appointed me interim chief executive, with Robert as special advisor. By sunset, I was sitting in my father's old office, my office now, looking out over the sea. The chess set he kept on his desk was exactly as I remembered it. Sarah found me there, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "Your dad would be popping champagne right now," she said, handing me one. His daughter, not just beating them at their own game, but creating a whole new one. I smiled, thinking of all his lessons. The game's not over yet. There's still the question of his death. "One battle at a time, remember?" She clanked her glass against mine. "Today was about taking back what's yours. Tomorrow we get justice." A knock at the door interrupted us. Marcus, with a stack of files. "Found these in Diana's personal safe," he said. "Thought you might be interested." The files contained everything. Proof of Diana's long game, her manipulation of my father, and most importantly, evidence of what really happened the night he died. "Well," Sarah said, looking at the files. "Looks like tomorrow came early." I picked up the queen from my father's chess set, remembering his words about letting opponents think they'd won. Diana had thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She never realized we were playing an entirely different game. "You know what Dad always said about chess," I told Sarah, setting the queen back in its place. "The queen might seem like the most powerful piece, but it's how you use your pawns that really wins the game." As if in answer, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Chen Industries stock soars under new leadership. Former CEO faces criminal charges. I looked around the office, at my father's books still lining the walls, his favorite painting hanging behind the desk, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. Diana had tried to erase every trace of him, but his real legacy was never in these things. It was in the lessons he taught me, the strength he'd helped me find. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There would be companies to rebuild, partnerships to restore, and yes, justice to pursue for my father's death. But tonight, sitting in his chair, I felt at peace for the first time since losing him. To Dad, I said, raising my glass. To Dad, Sarah echoed. And to the daughter who proved that the smartest player isn't always the one making the most noise. Outside my office, Chin Industries hummed with renewed energy. Employees who'd been afraid under Diana's leadership walked taller now. The fear was gone, replaced by hope. I picked up my father's favorite pen, the one he used to sign every major deal, and began writing out my plans for the company's future. There would be changes, but not like Diana's slash-and-burn approach. These would be strategic, thoughtful, built on the foundation my father had created. The sun had set completely now, leaving the office lit only by the city's glow. In this light, I could almost imagine my father sitting across from me, that proud smile on his face, setting up another chess game. "Your move, Diana," I whispered to the empty room. "Your move."